Our MQP topic focused on what determinants lead to success in WPI student-led organizations. The team members involved in this study included Tyler Alexander, Nisa Kasha, and Angelica Zawada. The individuals that make up this MQP team all have been leaders and would like to continue to grow and become mentors for those through the knowledge gained from this project. This topic is not just personal to all of us, but also is the primary focus of our majors, which include management, management engineering, and psychological science. We decided to conduct research so that not only we will know what does and doesn't work in leading an organization, but so that organizations in our WPI community also have this knowledge. The most important reason why we chose to investigate student-led organizations at WPI is because of the high percentage of overall student involvement. For a campus of roughly 4,000 undergraduate students, WPI contains over 200 student organizations and clubs, a staggering amount for its small enrollment size. There are so many diverse organizations that can thrive in a small population, which may grow, stagnate, or decline. We wanted to find out what works well or is successful when leading an organization. We defined success in our study in terms of membership engagement. Therefore, based on our definition of success, the most successful organizations are those who have fully engaged members. We chose a particular set of variables to study in relation to membership engagement. Our project is distinctive because the variables we are investigating have never been tested simultaneously. These four variables, gender, organizational hierarchy, leadership characteristics and traits, and leadership styles, were chosen as a result of what we have learned through our studies and research of what variables most impact leadership. In addition, we created hypotheses related to each of these variables.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, women's rights groups as well as various historical factors had been steadily leading to more women entering education and the workforce. In the second half of the 20th century, women began to receive higher education in droves and continue to skyrocket into the workforce. Today, more women are attending college in the United States than men, and women now make up more than half of the American workforce. With all of these changes, we as a group felt it would be pertinent to see if women in leadership roles at WPI would affect the organizations they were part of in regards to membership engagement. Thus, we have the hypothesis, organizations wherein the executive or leadership board is split evenly between males and females will have higher levels of membership engagement than those with executive boards comprised mostly of either males or females. The dawn of industrialization helped to solidify relatively uniform business hierarchies for centuries after its zenith, which only hardened during the 20th century with concepts such as assembly lines and massive standardization. Towards the latter half of the 20th century, a growing school of thought began to advocate flatter, leaner organizations, which eventually were put into practice. Today, many companies talk about trimming the fat and becoming more effective through flattening the organization. Therefore, this MQP team thought another important hypothesis would be to see which type of organizational structure, flat or hierarchical, would lead to higher membership engagement. Thus, for this variable, our hypothesis is organizations with a flatter, more collaborative hierarchy will experience increased membership engagement.
Our research showed us that in order to be a leader that speaks for and serves all who follow him or her, known as a servant leader, a person must have these 10 characteristics in particular. The characteristics are listening, empathy, healing, awareness, persuasion, conceptualization, foresight, stewardship, commitment to the growth of people, and building community. In addition, researchers have also discovered that personality traits of leaders influence the degree of success of a leader. A professor of management and leadership at the State University of New York stated that the 5 most influential traits that determine success are a leader's energy levels and stress tolerance, self-confidence, internal control orientation, emotional maturity, and integrity. Other traits recognized in effective leaders include dominance, intelligence, flexibility, and sensitivity to others. The background research led us to hypothesize that successful leaders of an organization in terms of engaging members would each have more than half of the 19 characteristics and traits identified previously. Here you can see our list of 19 characteristics and traits listed in the background and their descriptions. Please take a moment to view these individual characteristics and traits.
We found that a leader's style sets a tone for how an organization operates and can often be separated into one or even multiple categories of emotional appeal and logical idealism. A few of the more prominent methods of leadership include tyrannical control, democratic organization, and laissez-faire methodology. The sole commonality of leaders is to streamline an organization to achieve a common goal. Motivation tends to lie at the center of organizational command, and leaders can employ one or a combination of methods such as coaching, pace setting, commanding, or charisma in order to gain and inspire followers. Great leaders have used all of these methods and techniques. All have certain pitfalls and positive qualities. In order to be an effective leader, a little of each technique should be used. In looking at these different methods, we must first understand that organizations are structured around their leaders, who are seen as role models. If a leader is demanding, critical, and encourages competition within an organization, the organization will embody these ideas. If a leader is respected, encouraging, and holds its members to a higher standard of work, a more relaxed environment will exist. This is why, when looking at leadership styles, we hypothesize that organizations with a participatory leadership style tend to experience increased membership engagement.
Using SPSS statistical software, we compared gender overall to membership engagement and through ANOVA and univariate testing found that there was no significance. Then we tested to see if gender and leadership positions affected membership engagement, and we also found no significance for this. As can be seen from this simple chart comparing the mean membership engagement scores between females and males, the difference is extremely marginal. This only goes to support our statistical output further in showing that there seems to be no difference in regards to gender and membership engagement. Again, using SPSS, it was found that organizational hierarchy, regardless of whether or not an organization was flat, showed no significance when related to membership engagement. This can be seen in the simple chart comparing the mean membership engagement scores between hierarchical and flat organizations in our sample where there is hardly any difference between the two. It should be noted that for this variable, we were lacking an amount of variation that would make these results more concrete unless a larger sample in the future could give us a more accurate reading regarding this variable.
When analyzing the data, we ran a count program to identify how many leadership characteristic and trait scale questions had over 50% of the characteristics and traits identified in the background. We found that only 4 out of 83 participants that answered the characteristics and traits questions answered that leaders' organization had half or less than half of the traits and characteristics listed in the background. Therefore, there was not a significant amount of data to compare to those that had more than half of the characteristics and traits, so we decided to see if higher leadership means or scores correlates with improved membership engagement without strict cutoffs. Using an ANOVA and univariate testing, we found those who scored higher on our leadership and traits scale in our survey had higher membership engagement in their organization. In addition, we performed a linear regression as you can see here. Through the linear regression, we found a positive correlation between leadership characteristics and traits and membership engagement. The higher each characteristic and trait is displayed by the leader, the higher the engagement will be, as you can see here.
The majority of organizations in our sample use a participatory leadership style, where all executive members had a say in decisions. When we evaluated our survey data, we again conducted an ANOVA test in regards to leadership styles using membership engagement as a dependent variable. As you can see in this graph, there are 3 different numbers representing groups of individuals who took the survey. Group 1 in the figure represents people who claim to lack a participatory leadership style in their organization. Group 2 in the figure claim to neither have nor lack participatory leadership styles in their organization. Group 3 in the figure are members who claim to have a participatory leadership style within their organization. As engagement increased, the count of people who claimed to view their executives having strong participatory leadership style also increases. Statistically, the survey data showed that participatory leadership style was chosen most frequently by those taking the survey in relation to membership engagement. Therefore, participatory leadership styles had more impact on membership engagement. Primarily, leaders must first be seen as a role model. If leaders follow through with everything they say they will, members will follow their example. How can leaders hold their members accountable if they do not hold themselves accountable? Leaders must also follow through by leaving their organizations a succession plan. Leaders should be aware of how they will leave their organization. Leaders should be looking for qualities they possess in members. The more members understand about leadership roles within the organization, the easier the transition of leadership is. If members are unsure of how the executive members of the group operate, the organization can be just drastically altered when new officers transition in, which can lead to chaos and disorder. Next, our interviews and surveys led us to find that leaders should try to include everyone in the organization's activities. We found that if members felt ownership of what the organization was doing, they appeared more engaged. Delegating tasks to members gives members something to do and creates a sense of ownership of the successes within the organization. This not only helps members get engaged, but also puts them in leadership positions. If leaders foster an environment of collaboration and cooperation, more voices will be heard and more work will get done. Finally, leaders need to have a clear idea of what their organization's mission is and how they want to achieve their organization's goals. The interviews we conducted made it clear that without understanding the organization's mission and defining goals, little could be accomplished. In order to engage members, they must also be open to new ideas. Being open to ideas means listening to members' ideas of their organization's mission and goals. Getting a new light on old ideas keeps organizations growing and prospering.
While we found no significance regarding gender and organizational hierarchy when it was tested against membership engagement, we as a team did not view this negatively. We chose to interpret this in the sense that it does not matter what your gender is or what structure you are using, so much as what you do and how one acts as a leader that can make or break results. For a much more thorough analysis of all of this, feel free to read our MQP report, which will be available publicly through the WPI Gordon Library website.